What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr, and today I am bringing you a profile update to Speedroids. That's right, they've even got more support coming out not too long, I hope, away, but they came in, I believe it's like the Limit Over collection in the OCG, so we should be able to get them soon, please. But what I've done with this deck is I've given it an update, modernized it a little bit. You can, if you want to, play a very small Radiant package. You could then decide to go down the route of a Fiendsmith package and it rolls and rolls and rolls. But I've kept this pure Speedroids. I really enjoy the way this deck runs. It is a wind-focused synchro deck and it just works really, really nicely. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. Diving head first into the profile, we're going to start off with our pendulum monsters, and that is going to be the Speedroid Marble Machine. Now, all of the Speedroid cards kind of search each other out and then push each other out and work in just great tandem. So the scale effect to this one is that when your defense position monster is targeted for an attack, you get to change it to face up attack position. Also, it cannot be destroyed by that battle this turn, even if this card leaves the field. So it's kind of a nice way to protect and wall up, but more times than not, you're actually going to use its on summon effect, which annoyingly is specifically when it's normal summoned, which is annoying for a pendulum monster, but you know, we gotta roll with it. When this is normal summoned, you get to activate the effect to add a Speedroid monster from the deck to the hand. You cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except wind monsters. The idea is you do get a couple of different normal summons through the back of your Speedroid cards, so I wouldn't worry about it that much. Then we're on 3 Speedroid Kernel Clackers. So again, you're really going to focus more so on its monster effect, but its scale effect lets you banish a Speedroid card from the graveyard to place a Speedroid pendulum monster from the deck into your pendulum zone. You can't special summon for the rest of the turn except winds, which can be quite nice if you work with the right levels, because you've got an 8 scale here and you've got a 1 scale there, so you can actually pendulum summon out a lot of your Speedroid monsters. More times than not, is if this card on the field is destroyed by battle or card effect, you get to special summon a Speedroid Kernel Clackers as a tuner from the hand, deck, or grave. During damage calculation, if your Clear Wing monster battles while this card is face up in your extra deck, you get to banish this card, and if you do, that monster gains 700 attack, only use each effect once per turn. Then we've got the 1 Speedroid Wing Synchron. So the scale effect is once per turn you get to destroy this card and then add and 1 level 7 level 2 Wind Pendulum monster card in your pendulum zone. And if you do, you special summon a Clear Wing Synchro monster from the extra deck and it is treated as a Synchro summon. For the rest of this turn, the cards in your pendulum zone cannot be destroyed by card effect and you can't special summon except winds. If this card is added to your extra deck face up and you control 2 or more different types of wind synchro monsters, special summon a Speedroid spell, send a Speedroid spell trap from the deck to the grave, only use the effect once per turn. Then we move on to our extenders in the form of our Speedroid Card Turbo. Now you can actually play more of this if you want to and bump it up to 3. I've kind of kept this at a 41 card deck, which I think is absolutely fine. And I don't mind not playing this at multiple because you do search it very, very easily. So if you try a wind monster, you get special on this card from the hand. You can't special on monsters from the rest of the turn except winds. You get to banish this card to add a Speedroid monster from the grave. All wind monsters you control gain 800 attack until the end of the turn. Only use each effect once per turn. So again, just a nice extender, and then on top of that as well, it's a tuner which can help you get into your synchro plays. Then probably the most famous Speedroid monster is going to be 3 Speedroid Terratop. So you control no monsters, you get special on this card from the hand, and when it is normal or special, you get to add a Speedroid monster from the deck to the hand. 99% of the time, you're just going to go and grab yourself your Speedroid Tokentongborg, and if you control a wind monster, you get special on this card from the hand. Treat this card special on a Speedroid tuner from the deck. You can't special on monsters for the rest of the turn except winds, only special on it once per turn this way. Now again, this is another card you can play at 3. I like playing it at 2 just because it's so easily searchable and it just gives me a bit more of a range to utilize, which is what I think is best about this deck. Then we've got 2 Speedroid Ultra Hound. So when this card is again specifically normal summoned, you send a Speedroid card from the deck to the grave. During your main phase, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you banish it from the graveyard to target a Speedroid monster in your grave and shuffle it into the deck. And if you do, you special summon a Speedroid Synchro monster from the extra deck that has the same level but a different name, but you negate its effects. So this is actually a really quite nice one because it allows you to kind of recycle and then get you the ability to go into a synchro summon if you need to. Then we've got 1 Speedroid Fuki Mushido Piper. So this is another tuner, and if it is normal or special this time, you get to activate cards from the top of the deck equal to a number of other wind monsters you control. You add an excavated card to the hand, so it lets you add pretty much anything in the entire deck. Then on top of that one as well, you get to add it from the top of the head, put the rest on the bottom of the deck in any order. You can banish this card from the graveyard to target a level 3 or higher wind monster you control and reduce its level by 2. So again, that lets you manipulate the levels to go into different synchro plays. Then we've got the 1 Den Den Daiko Duke, we've got the 1 Double Yo-Yo, and the 1 Red Eye Die. Now you can play multiple Red Eye Die if you want to. Again, I don't think it's ultimately necessary, but it is an option for you. So your Duke is you get to banish this card from the graveyard to special summon a Speedroid tuner from the hand or grave, except itself. The Yo-Yo is when it's normal, you get to target a level 3 or lower Speedroid in the grave and special summon it. And your Red Eye Dice is when it's normal or special, you get to target a Speedroid monster you control, except itself, and you declare a level between 1 and 6, and it becomes that level until the end of the turn. So again, level manipulation to help open up your synchro plays. Then an honorary Speedroid, I guess, is playing 3 Win the Wind Charmer. So this one lets you discard itself and then one other wind monster to add any wind monster with 1,500 or less defense from the deck to the hand. So this is just more consistency to get to the pieces that you're going to need and then open up your plays for synchro plays or even just spam in the field plays. You can play non-synchros in the extra deck. You can consider stuff like Totem Bird. You could also consider stuff like Gossip Shadow, which can give you a line of protection from cards like Nibiru, but then you do have a lot of power to push through. And then the most recent addition to this deck, which I actually think is an insanely good card, is Sheena, Twin Tempest of Celestial Thunder. So the first time this card will be destroyed by battle, each turn it is not. And then when your opponent activates a card or effect while you control a wind monster, quick effect special on this card from the hand, and then you apply the following effect based on what was activated in response to your effect. So monster, return all face-up monsters on the field to the hand, non-target. Or spells and traps, return all spells and traps on the field to the hand. You can only use this effect once per turn. But I just think it's insane because it gives you a 2900 boss monster. It gives you a way to clear out your opponent's field without them being able to sometimes respond. Like if they respond with anything bar super polarization or a counter trap, you can always respond with your Sheena as long as you control a wind monster. And that can return cards like Dragoon. It can return cards like Ilya Sylvia. Yes, of course, by the time you get to this point, they've probably used them or negated them. But the idea is you get to return non-targeted, non-destruction monsters back to the extra deck, and you are clear to swing in for a 2,900 attack. Moving on to the spells, I've gone with 2 Speedroid Wheels, 2 Recoveries, and 1 Scratch. So the wheel lets you discard a card to roll a 6-sided dice and then special summon from the hand and or deck 1 or 2 Speedroid monsters whose total levels equal the result, but you negate their effects. If you do not special summon, you lose life points equal to the result times 500. The Speedroid Recovery lets you target a Speedroid monster in the grave and special summon it, and during the main phase, except the turn this card was sent to the grave, you banish it from the graveyard to target a Speedroid monster in your grave and add it back to your hand, so resource management. And then Scratch lets you send a Speedroid card from the hand to the grave to add a Speedroid monster from the deck to the hand. You can only activate 1 Scratch per turn. Then we've got the generic Call by the Grave, and then we've got 1 Speedroid Duplicate and 1 Speedroid Clear Wing Wonder. Now, if you want to balance this deck out and have cards that are better for going first or second, you could consider stuff like Forbidden Droplet, but these do have graveyard effects that you're going to want to utilize. So the Duplicate lets you banish a wind monster from the grave and then target a card your opponent controls and return it to the hand. During your main phase, if this card is in the graveyard, you get to target a level 2 or higher Speedroid monster you control, reduce its level by 1. And if you do special on this card as a normal monster, Machine, Tuner, Wind, level 1, and it is not treated as a trap card. You can only use each effect once per turn, but that's just a way to get another level 1 tuner back to the field. Your Clear Wing Wonder, target cards your opponent controls up to a number of different monster types among the wind synchro monsters you control. Destroy them. If your opponent special summons a monster except during a damage step, you get to banish this card from the grave, target a wind synchro monster you control, banish it, and then return it to the field. Only use each effect once per turn. And then for the non-engine pieces, we've got Ash Blossoms, Fuas, and Ghost Bells. But like I've already mentioned, you could consider stuff like Forbidden Droplets, you can consider stuff like Forbidden Crowns if you want to. You've got Perulias that could be quite useful for you as well. And then if you really, really want to, this could be a very, very aggressive build. And you could go with 3 Eldam or like 2 to 3 Eldam, 2 to 3 Sven, and then like Chance if you wanted to. Entirely up to you. If you were to go down that particular route, I would suggest utilizing some rank 3s in the extra deck just to use cards like Gossip Shadow and just to use cards like Totem Bird to add you another layer of disruption, interaction, or protection. Moving on to the extra deck, we play the full Clear Wing Crystal Wing family bar 1. So we're playing the 1 Clear Wing over Synchro Dragon. So I'm going to have to read these card effects directly for you, but it must be synchro summoned. And then once per turn, when another card or effect is activated, quick effect, negate the activation. If you do, destroy that card. If you destroyed a monster, this card gains attack equal to that monster's original attack until the end of the turn. If this face-up synchro summon card in its owner's control leaves the field by an opponent's card, you special summon a clearing monster from the extra deck. Then we play the 1 Crystal Clearwing Synchro Dragon. So once per turn when your opponent activates a monster effect, except during a damage step, quick effect, the activation, negate the activation, quick effect, you can activate this effect until the end of the turn. This face-up card is unaffected by the activated effects of your opponent's monsters, and this card gains attack equal to that opponent's monster's original attack. Once per turn when a spell, trap card, or effect is activated, quick effect, negate the activation. If you do, destroy that card. If the synchro summon card you control is sent to the graveyard by an opponent's card, you get to add a wind monster from the deck to the hand. Then we've got the 1 Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. You can play 2 of this, opposed to playing a second Crystal Wing. I do play the 1 High Speed Kite, but I'll talk about that in a minute, because the other Clear Wing and Crystal Wing, or Winged Synchro cards we play, is 2 Clear Wing and the 1 Clear Wing Fast Dragon. So your Clear Wing Synchro Dragon is once per turn during your player's turn, when another level 5 or higher monster's effect is activated on the field, negate the activation. If you do, destroy it. I would have loved this to have been anywhere, because then you could deal with Nibiru, but... and then once per turn during your player's turn, when a monster effect is activated that targets exactly 1 level 5 or higher monster on the field, and no other cards, negate the activation. If you do, destroy it. If this card's effect destroys a monster, it gains attack equal to that destroyed monster's attack until the end of the turn. Your Fast Dragon is quick effect, target a face-up monster your opponent controls that was special summoned from the extra deck. Until the end of this turn, you change its attack to 0 and negate its face-up monster effects. Only use the effect once per turn, and if it's in the monster zone and is destroyed by battle, you get to put it, or card effect, you put it into the Pendulum Zone. Then moving on to the Speedroids, so we play the 1 Kite Drake. So this one is synchro summoned, you get to activate one of the following effects. Destroy all other cards on the field, negate the effects of all face-up cards your opponent currently controls. And if this card in your possession is sent to the grave by an opponent's card, get to target, add a Speedroid monster from the deck to the hand. So it's just another nice option to the Crystal Wing. As Crystal Wing's defensive, whereas Kite Drake can be offensive. Then we've got the 1 Stardust Charge Warrior, just the generic level 6 that is not a tuner that lets you attack and also attack all your opponent's monsters and draws you a card. I quite like Raptite right now, just for the pure fact that it's a wind, but with Theme Smith running around, it's a card that can really control your opponent's graveyard. Usually if you go off unanswered, you should be able to build up a pretty strong field, but even if you were to eat every interaction your opponent has and still get a Raptite, that's going to be better than going for a Charge Warrior, because at least the Raptite can then control if your opponent goes, okay, cool, tracked, add Lurry, discard Lurry, you go, cool, Raptite, banish the Lurry. So it gives you a lot to play with. Then you've got the 1 High Speed Roid Glider. So again, if this card is synchro summoned, you get to add a target level 7 or lower wind non-tuner synchro in your grave and special summon it. If your opponent special summons a monster and you control a Clear Wing monster except during damage step, banish this card from the grave and increase the levels of all monsters your opponent controls by 5. So it can make them very awkward if they're trying to synchro or Xyz. Then we've got the 1 High Speed Hagota. So during either player's turn, you get to treat this card, increase the levels of all monsters on the field by 1 until the end of the turn. If it's in the graveyard and you control a Speedroid tuner, you get to special summon this card. You can't special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except wind monsters, so pretty standard for Speedroids. Then I'm on 2 Cork Shooters. You don't have to play 2. Some people will adapt this depending on what they want to play 2 of. If you want to play 2 Crystal Wing, by all means you can do that as well. But this one, again, synchro summoned, you get, if it's synchro summoned, you get to activate one of the effects. Add a Speedroid spell or trap from the deck to the hand. If all monsters that were used for the synchro summon of this card were Speedroid monsters and are in the graveyard, you special summon all of them. You can't special summon monsters the turn you activate this except wins. So it locks you in wins for the entire turn. So, which isn't the end of the world, but again, if you were to go down like a Radiant route and you wanted to play stuff that aren't wins, even if you wanted to bridge the Theme Smiths, then you just wouldn't play Cork Shooter. And then finally, 2 High Speed Roid Rubber Band Shooters. So during the main phase, you can immediately after this effect resolves, normal summon a wind monster. You can't special summon from the extra deck for the rest of the turn except synchro monsters. You can banish 1 wind synchro monster from the extra deck, and then reveal 2 Speedroid monsters with different names from the deck, whose total levels equal the level of the monster that you revealed. Your opponent randomly picks one for you to add to the hand, and you send the other to the graveyard. So we've already seen with the Speedroids, there's cards that want to be in the graveyard, there's cards that want to be in your hand, and then this giving you an additional normal summon can actually be really, really helpful, because actually you can trigger cards that only want to trigger on normal summon, like your Ultra Hound, or your Marble Machine. So it gives you a little bit more versatility. And that is pretty much it for the entire profile. The deck's not perfect. Like, Speedroids still have a couple of fragilities, and that's hopefully where the new support will come in to fix it and make them a little bit more resilient. But it's just a really kind of cool deck, and it's another deck that allows me to play Sheena without having to rely on Radiants, basically. But if you wanted to play Radiants, if you've already got Radiants and you played Speedroids, you've probably already been cooking up with this combination. But it's just something you can look at, which could be really, really fun, really powerful, and kind of increase its consistency. Especially if you're like a Crystal Wing, Clear Wing, or just Synchro Dragon fan as well. It just works out nicely. Anyway, any questions at all? Comments down below. I'm always happy to answer them. For now, as absolutely always, stay safe and, of course, happy dueling.